Oh, gosh. This one's gonna get me, guys. This one is not one that you expect to see when you're doing a top 10 Pride virtue signal in Pride Month. We're gonna click the link, and it's gonna take us to a clip from none other than Fox freaking News, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the video. Let's react.
Walking down the street, you wouldn't think anything different.
14-year-old Ryland Whittington is a typical Southern California teenager. And
is he though?
Whittingtons, along with mom Hillary, dad Jeff, and sister Brinley, are a typical family. The only difference, though, in Ryland's eyes, is what this family can mean to the tens of thousands of kids under 18 who identify as transgender.
No, I think the only difference is that the parents here are subjecting the child to something that they couldn't possibly consent for, and they couldn't possibly have asked for. And we're gonna get into this because I've seen this already. You know, I keep up with the news, and it gets worse. It gets so much worse.
We put our story out there so people could see that, like, there's another family out there that is going through what we're going through, or there's another family who's proud of who they are.
Before Ryland could even speak, he managed to tell his parents that he is a boy.
How exactly? Really listen to that. Before Ryland could even speak, he managed to tell his parents that he was a boy? So a little girl who cannot speak managed to communicate to two adult parents that she's actually a boy. It's ridiculous. I was talking to my boyfriend about this yesterday, and there's all these stories, and you'll see all these shows and true crime stuff about a condition known as Munchausen by proxy. And it's a condition that parents can have, and anybody who has representation over another person, power of attorney, things like this, where they will inflict on their child the idea that they have diseases. Some parents go as far as to take their children to the hospital and say, you know, my kid is getting frequent viral infections, bacterial infections, my kid is sick all the time, I need you to treat them, and they will be lying. They have either convinced themselves or lied to convince themselves that their child has diseases and then subject their child to medical treatment. And there are many famous stories of this happening. One of the most famous is Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who actually ended up taking her mother's life and is now in prison because her mother subjected her to hundreds of medical treatments without her knowledge that she was actually a healthy human being. This is Munchausen by proxy. You are a grown parent who has a baby, and you are telling me that your baby expressed gender confusion to you, and then you are allowing your child to transition either socially or medically? That is Munchausen by proxy, and it would have been seen as such if we have not morphed into a society that refuses to recognize that now. This used to be in the DSM-5. This used to be a diagnosis of mental illness. So if you as a parent look at your one-year-old child and say, my child has a mental illness before they have been able to express even words to you, you have Munchausen by proxy. I don't care what anybody says. That is exactly what it is. And how we do not see this as an abuse on children blows my mind. And the fact that we're watching this right now and Fox News is in the bottom left corner of this page blows my mind. And you know, I have a great relationship with Fox, and I'm sure this is not the act of the workers who work on the shows at Fox. I'm on Fox once a week to go talk on the Ingram angle. I'm sure this wasn't her decision. I want to know what executive signed off on this and said, yes, put this on primetime. Allow this to be seen by the American people, and that person should be fired immediately. And not even joke, not for dad jokes. Fired effective immediately because of this segment.
I could just see it. It wasn't him trying to be a brat. It was like painful. It was truly painful for him to have to wear feminine clothing and for us constantly telling him that you're a girl.
Really? So little baby who doesn't understand what the word girl means, it was painful to hear the word girl? And if your kid doesn't like wearing dresses and takes them off and goes, hey, I want to wear pants, put your girl in pants. She can wear pants. It's just unbelievable to me.
Unlike some trans kids, when Ryland came out at age 5 a few years later, he had the full support of his parents.
Initially, there was some pushback from us in trying to understand this.
We were confused like most people are. We thought that gender and sexuality were the same thing. It took us a while to figure out.
No, they're not the same thing. In fact, gender is just to apply to words. You gender words. You do not gender people. It's a recent phenomenon, and it's unbelievable. Rylan came out at 5 years old. Can we get a look into what that conversation looked like? A 5-year-old, after you've coaxed them with gender theory since they were a baby, since before they could talk, what did it look like for your 5-year-old to come out to you? After you apparently knew before they could even speak.
That those two things are different, and that children actually do recognize their gender identity very young. Some of them, not all.
But they listened to Rylan and to Hillary's conservative faith.
For me, it's just a deep spiritual belief that you believe in God and he, created us the way he wanted us. Well, then yes, he created Rylan just the way he is.
And
that's the thing, though. You're actually rejecting that premise. And I'm not even religious, but you're rejecting the premise that you just mentioned. Because if that was true, if Rylan was to be accepted the way that she was born, tomboys exist. You could have just had a girl who likes masculine things and who doesn't like to wear dresses or likes to play with boys' toys. Why couldn't that would be truly accepting what your daughter was born as and what your daughter favors and what your daughter likes. Instead, now you've committed your child to something that most likely they're not going to change their mind on. And we talked about this on the show, and I said, imagine this like getting a tattoo. And I showed you guys the tattoo that I regret getting, that I got when I was 16 years old. Imagine how deeply we think about even putting a tattoo on our bodies, because it's there forever. And when it's there, you have subscribed yourself to whatever it is that you tattooed on yourself. I don't care if it's something you love. I don't care if it's a family member's name, whatever the tattoo is. You have subscribed yourself to that. That is now on your body forever. And you will fight to stay connected to whatever it is you've put on yourself. Imagine doing that to a child and doing it with their sex and saying, you are not a girl, you are a boy. And not only that, I know you're a minor, but I'm going to put you on Fox News to talk about how cemented you are in this belief. So even if Rylan starts to question herself about this decision, you already said it on Fox News. The whole world has already seen it. Don't you think that's going to give you a deeper tie to whatever it is you believe at this age as a teenager? How hard is it going to be to grapple with the actual reality when you come to it? How hard is it going to be to work yourself backwards and say, well, maybe not. It might never happen now, especially since you put your minor on something like Fox News to talk about how 100% this is who they are. Who on this earth knows 100% who they are? Do you guys? Maybe we'll do a poll on that. Do you guys know 100% who you are as a person? I would venture to say you don't. And this teenager does. And in fact, she knew when she was, 2 years old? Before talking, so 1 year old. Unbelievable.
They listened to families. They met in support groups.
There was a father who was sitting across the table. He says, you have no idea how lucky you are to be here, which kind of took me back. I didn't at that point consider myself lucky to be there. And he said, our child had displayed this gender dysphoria or this gender misalignment at the same age that Rylan has. And we didn't listen, and we pushed back.
That pushback led that child to turn to self-harm as a teenager, which 60% of trans and non-binary kids engage in, according to the Trevor Project.
What they're not telling you now is that the worst suicidal ideation that trans people typically feel, and this has been studied, is what? Years after they go through full transition, years after medical transitioning, even in supportive families and cultures. The problem persists. Why would you not highlight that, Fox News? Can you answer that question for me? Why would you choose to highlight this instead of what is truthful? And to use the Trevor Project, which is known for supporting all children in gender transition? Dude, it's like we are living in a clown world. It's like a clown world upside down, Twilight Zone. Cannot believe I'm seeing this from the outlet that I am seeing it from. And let me be clear. Gender dysphoria is very real. Is it by any means the size that we're seeing it right now, the scope that we're seeing it with now, with thousands upon thousands of young people expressing this? No, it is not. Am I sure that there are truly young people who experience gender dysphoria, a true cognitive disposition where they believe they are the opposite gender or sex? Absolutely, I think that exists. But is social contagion making this far worse and making people afflicted with this when they don't actually have that? Yes. And transgender doctors will tell you this. I recently watched Matt Walsh's What is a Woman? I encourage you all to watch it if you haven't already. And they talk about this in depth. You even have trans affirming doctors who will say, yeah, I do think social contagion plays a big factor in this.
More than 50% consider suicide.
That for me was the turning point. I didn't want to see Ryland go through that.
I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter. I guarantee that if we had pushed back and done what a lot of parents do, I don't think that we would have either one of the kids that you see before you here today.
Allowing him to live authentically and true to himself and be who he really feels like he is. When you get to know Ryland, you see just how proud and confident he is of himself.
Ryland's.
I think that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful to be proud and confident in yourself. But is that truly the case when you have to jump through all of these hoops to create and morph your body into something that you were not born as? Does that truly express to you all who are watching right now full and utter confidence in the body that you were born in and the person that you actually are? Because it doesn't seem to be that for me. And you hear the stories not only of detransitioners, but of transgender people who are going through a multitude of surgeries and body operations to feel the confidence that they're meant to feel. If you have to jump through all that, create a shell for yourself, a completely new shell. It's essentially like we are playing Avatar. Like we are in like this VR world where our bodies are avatars and we can just morph them with a snap of our fingers. And we leave out the scalpel and the cutting up and the mutilating and the side effects and all the problems that come after that. And we just accept this to be the reality and to be something that's good. Is that true confidence in yourself, having to change yourself this much? I'm only going to watch a little bit more of this and then we'll move on.
Story got international attention in 2014 when a family YouTube video went viral. And Hillary has since written a book called Raising Ryland.
Viral, books, it's fine. I'm not going to say anything else about this. I do think there is a certain point when you are a parent that if your child is just constantly, consistently, and if this persisted into adulthood, at some point, I imagine that if somebody's going to persist with this on their own, without your influence, for years and years and years and into adulthood, at some point, I believe every parent would probably have to come to the fork in the road where they go, okay, maybe this is who my child is. Maybe this is what I need to accept. But the details in this story don't quite align with that. Before your child could talk, at 5 years old, they came out to you fully? But they were expressing that before with nonverbal language, that they were not a girl, but indeed a boy. I would love if they were pressed a little harder on that and went into a little bit more detail about what that looked like. Your 1-year-old telling you that they're actually a boy. I have no idea what that would look like non-verbally. So shame on whoever greenlit this at Fox News. And I don't know if they're going to address it or if this is going to be taken care of, but it's insane. Insane. And it makes you question everything. Like, it makes you question your support for everything. Why would an outlet like this put this out? Because it's not for money. It's not to satiate their own consumers, because your consumers, the consumers of Fox News, do not support this message. So who is this for? Who paid for it? Who funded it? Who pushed the story? Who got it approved? So curious to know those things.